Adam Robinson was supposed to have the exit of a lifetime.
$35 million up front and a $35 million potential earnout.
But the night before it was supposed to be official,
he walked.
For founders in the exit period, that is a worst case scenario. Unless it's not. Because in Adam's story, it was a blessing in disguise. And not just because of the growing valuation of the company, though that helps, obviously. This is the story of why Adam is grateful for what at the time felt like a complete nightmare, and what all founders need to know before the allure of the big exit carries them away. I'm Harry Morton, and this is Moneywise. We're not here to tell you how to get rich. This is a show about what happens next. It was made for the Hampton community, which is the ultimate resource for founders pre or post exit, so you can learn more about that at joinhampton.com. But let's get right to it. I'll start by addressing right away that even with that blow, Adam's finances are just fine.
I started another business a year ago that is the same product that we sell to e-commerce, but for B2B, it's called RB2B. So if you add those two up, it's 25 million ARR. And at that point, I was talking to that guy, it was 8 million. So it's tripled, We only had 6 people at that time. We have 40 full-time employees now.
Wow.
But that's not really a lot for a 25 million ARR company.
Not at all.
Typically, it's 150 people they have at this point. We have no funding. It's a really good situation. We're kind of generating $1 million a month in profit, and it's
that's bonkers.
Good.
He doesn't like to count that value in his personal net worth, but even on that front, he's doing pretty well.
I haven't checked since this down trade what our stock portfolio is, but we have a couple million of stocks. I got this crypto fund which a month ago was worth 50% more than it is now, but they were up quite a bit. So maybe call it $1 million, maybe a little less. I have 2 properties that have no debt on them. My house in Austin is probably worth $2.5 or $3 million, and then I have this piece of land that's 1.5, and then I have my business. So, add all of that other stuff up. I don't know. It's probably 6, if I'm counting correctly.
6
maybe
plus
7.
The business.
Yeah.
There's a couple of things we'll talk about there. One is crypto, which plays a pretty big role in his story. And 2 is that insanely healthy profit and how that contributes to his personal finances. And speaking of personal finances, we'll start at a pretty interesting place. A place that may in part account for why his financial journey has been so full of hits and misses. A place where he got comfortable with that. Wall Street. What were you earning back then?
I think the first year it was a $55,000 base or something.
Yep.
And that was 2003.
Okay.
Maybe I got a $20,000 bonus or something.
Cool.
That first year.
Yeah, nice. You got bit by the startup bug. When did that happen and why?
Well, it happened the day I showed up in New York because I was rooming with these guys who were starting Vimeo, the video sharing website, in my apartment. I actually had a pretty successful for a 20-something-year-old trading career, but these guys were just living this crazy life. I just could see and feel that what they were doing was more meaningful than what I was doing, and kind of the financial part of it was, they were doing a little bit better than me, but still my career in Wall Street accelerated to the point in my late 20s where I was doing whatever I wanted to do, it was
right.
And saving a ton. But there wasn't a clear path to that. A series of events happened that created a clear path to that for me. I think if you have a successful Wall Street trading career, there's this saying that every year they offer you $1 more than the amount that it would take you to quit.
Sure.
So
right.
It's they know literally just enough to keep you going.
Yeah.
So I had either the good fortune or bad fortune of in 2009, the year after the crisis, everybody the year of the crisis and the year after the crisis did unbelievably well doing what I did, this credit default swap trading stuff. And then I had a rough start to the next year. I had this really big bet that just went horribly wrong. My boss at the time, he thought that Europe was going to have a levered debt crisis like in the US. And there would be this amazing trading opportunity like there was in the US in 2008. And so he sent me along with a handful of other guys over there to wait in anticipation for this to happen. Long story short.
Got it.
Several of us got short and the market ground higher We made no money, and like my comp was down like 95% in 1 year. And
Wow.
and like at the same time, they were regulating the credit default swap market, and the market back in the US was shrinking rapidly. It's one thing, it went from like there being a huge demand for the individual doing that job, like people were getting huge deals to change banks and stuff,
Yep.
to if you had a good job, you were just holding on to your seat with all your might.
Got it.
And the opportunity to like do what I did, which was like go to London, kind of fail for a year and come back and find something decent, was like not a good environment to do that. So I came back, there basically weren't any good jobs. I took this like job at a second-rate hedge fund, really, and it just, I got fired after 9 months or whatever. I got fired after like 6 weeks. And then that was my out.
Did you want to be out?
I wasn't yearning to get out for it was the only thing that I knew.
Sure.
And by the way, when it's going great, it's like one of the most fun things you can do. Like gambling is like very fun. And like, it is just the thrill of, sort of putting on a position and then watching it manifest, in your favor. And then you in turn, like, making a huge amount of money personally as a result of that happening is a very positive feedback loop. What scared me was looking at the guys who are now my age, right? When I was like in my late 20s, like mid 40s.
Yep.
And I looked at them and I didn't like what I saw. So a couple of them were like running the bank and making tens of millions of dollars per year. And I still didn't love what I saw, to be honest. Like getting into the office at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Just the stress of that job, the amount, and like the 3 guys below you are trying to take you out in your sleep. And like the people above you are like, what the fuck? It's just, I didn't like how it looked. I was just like, I think I'd saved a couple $1,000,000. I was like, I'm just going to spend this trying to figure out another life for myself because I don't want that to be it. And if I burn it all, then I'll just go back, hat in hand and, and just try to go for it.
Fast forward slightly, you start your first startup. Just walk me through your financial journey during that period, like personally.
Yeah.
So you started this thing with a couple million in the bank.
So another thing that I did is I made some chunky investments and stuff, and like, most of it like didn't work at all. Like this, I've heard it some other times in this podcast that like early stage venture is like not what you should do with your nest egg. And I just did a bunch of that stuff and it was just horrible. So, let's say I had like $1.25 million left. I didn't take a salary for 5 years. My plan was to fund this business with my brother and have somebody else operate it. But in actuality, it was the only thing that I was like kind of working on like 5 different things. And like this one thing worked. And fast forward 4 years, it's like, we're still making like monthly contributions to this thing. I'm running it. It's my whole life. I'm waiting on like him to like, for his wife to say that it's okay to like put in this 25 or 50 grand. I have this thing that I say where a startup will consume every dollar near it, especially with a first-time entrepreneur. It just got to the point where we ran out of dough to put into it. And then, kind of like it forced us to just get profitable. And then, that was that. I was heavily under the influence of people like Jason Fried, who wrote Rework and like, kind of the 4-hour work week thing. Like I wanted to have a bootstrapped business that optimized for freedom. And I still think that that's smart as an entrepreneur to like pursue that path. So that was really important to me, but it was very uncomfortable getting there.
Right. But once it was profitable, so you weren't paying yourself for the first 5 years. What did you start to pay yourself? Like how good was it in those
just
first?
whatever I could afford. It got kind of like pretty good, like pretty fast, but like maybe it started with like 50 grand. And then like a couple of years later, I was making like 150. And then a couple of years later, I was making like 500, but then it sort of got stuck. And I was like living in New York, with this, maybe it was 350, maybe it was 500. It was something like that. I have a couple co-founders and we were like $1.25 million, $1.5 million of profit on this tiny business, on this $3 million business. So I was sitting there in New York and I was like, I can't, I want to have a family someday. It was my late 30s. It's like, I can't do it on this, whatever. And by the way, I have a family now in Austin, which is not New York. And I was right. I just can't even believe how expensive stuff is.
When did you sell that first company then?
2021.
Okay, so kind of mid-pandemic. And how much did you make?
I ended up, we sold it for $10 million. We had a business broker, and with these small transactions, they take 10% off the top. Mm-hmm. I owned 40% of that. So after everything, maybe I think it was like 2.6 or something, maybe like 3 or something like that.
What did you do with it?
I paid off my mortgage, which was like maybe 1.2 or something. And then I bought a boat, which was like 150 grand. And then, new car was like 80, 90, something like that.
Those purchases are reasonable enough. They're not the seed investments he first experimented with, and it speaks to his larger money philosophy, which is less driven by what's smart financially and more driven by what helps him sleep at night. More on that shortly. Right now is where things are about to get ridiculous. Don't just take it from me.
Here's where it gets ridiculous.
Before he even got through that first business, called Robley, by the way, he already started building the next one. What was the kind of revenue journey of that company leading up to what you believed would be the sale? Like, what did that whole period of time look like?
Yeah, it went from, I think when we started talking about a sale, it was maybe like 2 years after starting it. And it was maybe at like 6 or 7 million ARR.
Okay, so pretty quick. Why was selling even on the table? 2 years in, it's growing like crazy.
Yeah, I was both burnt out by my prior journey because it was so hard, and I was like, I had no confidence in my own ability to get farther with company building than I had gotten, because I perceived our team as entirely lone wolves, and we didn't know how to manage anyone, and I would just probably screw it up if I tried, because that's kind of what happened with my first company. We kind of hired a lot of people and let them all go. So it seemed easier to just go this path, sell, 18-month earnout, I'm on to other things, right?
Yep.
But yeah, that's not how it went.
What did you think you were going to sell for? What was that dollar amount that you had in your head?
Well, it was $35 million up front and a $35 million potential earnout.
The most frustrating part of this story isn't the fact that the buyer walked, it was when.
Somebody got in the dude's ear a couple nights before he was supposed to sign, and he's like, I'm not doing this. I don't want to buy the data company. I need to stick with cleaner businesses or whatever.
So for months, Adam was preparing for the big event, both in the business itself and also in his personal life. But it wasn't a very sound personal preparation.
We were ready to sign in February, but in August, I went into the woods for a week solo hike and had this knowing that I wanted to sell this business and I was about to have a kid, I had this moment of clarity about how I wanted to run my life. I don't want to have personal debt. I want to be, conservative in all these ways and only buy SPY and never trade and not getting alternative assets and stuff. I left. It was during one of the Bitcoin rises, and I started learning about crypto, and it's just so infecting when you do that, right? It's just a religious movement, and the story is so good, right? So I started nibbling a little on crypto, against my better judgment of a week before in the woods. And we were literally about to sign the document on February 7th. In the middle of January, I buy this land for whatever, $1.5 million in the hill country with a mortgage, thinking that I have, $15 million coming in. And then I also got so into this crypto thing that I put $1 million in this blockchain fund, right? And the interesting part of it was as if I had already had the money, right? And it wasn't stuff that would absolutely wreck me, but it was totally the opposite of these principles that I want to live by. And it was in advance of actually having it, which is like very strange.
Right.
That
Okay.
happens. And I've also heard about this on other guests on this show, that they have done the same thing. Like they have this event happening, and like before it happens, they've already like levered up and like spent all of it. And then I'm like, okay, if I have like 20 million bucks and like rates are so low, then probably like I should have some debt. And you know, I got like I retook a mortgage out on my house.
Okay.
You know,
okay.
and basically took that money and like put it into this crypto fund. So I made like a levered bet on crypto in advance of what ended up being like the guy. Yeah, exactly. You're laughing. I mean, this is why I said.
This is why I said you're not giving money. Okay, I got it. I got it. And so where did it leave you financially? You thought you were going to sell. You spent a load of money in advance. You didn't sell. Where were you at that point?
You know, I had like maybe like at peak prices 2022, maybe like $1 million of SPY, $1 million of this fund, like 750 of other crypto, you know, and that was like the liquid stuff. And then I had this business.
What did that feel like? Was that just like a massive gut punch?
Yeah. I had literally internalized having this money. And again, it was like such a good thing that it didn't happen, because I would have bought way too much crypto and sold it all at the lows. But I just know that I would have. And I just know that that's what happened. But it was very horrible. But like it kind of like,
what did you do?
My attitude changed fairly quickly, because at the time I was sharing an office with this startup called Jasper AI, who like was kind of like ChatGPT before ChatGPT. But for 2 years before they started Jasper, I was sharing an office with them. We were both these tiny companies that were schmucks stuck at 2 billion ARR. And then I was literally having lunch with Dave the next day to like tell him I signed the APA from this company that I started in his office, right? Like one of us got rich. Look, amazing. And I went in and I was like, he walked, and it was just like, what? You know, I was like, yeah, man. And he's like, well, tell you what, dude, you got a pretty fast growing thing, and like maybe not as much as ours, but like, here's what I'm doing. I'm hiring these like killer people from, you know, these like IPO'd tech companies, and we're like building a real company, and they're like amazing. Like maybe you should. At the time, I had 6 people in 8 million in ARR and 1 salesperson. So he's like, just talk to this guy that I just hired, this like COO named Shane Orlick. He came from this company called WalkMe, and like, he's like, just talk to him. So I go talk to this Shane Orlick guy, and it was like, it's fine. I've only talked to him once. It was like one of the most transformational things for like snapping me out of that ever. He's like, dude, like, I got an idea for you. Hire 2 more salespeople, or maybe 4, right? Like you're only costing yourself by running your business this way. Like there is so much upside for you. Like it is just, you know, and this guy could like sell anything to anybody. He's just this like super, super infectious optimist type of character. And that was it from that point. And that's kind of what got me on this like unicorn thing. I'm like, well, if Dave could do it, I could do it. And that's a real thing, by the way. It's like, we thought we were $3 million guys. And then I saw these guys do this who I knew very well. And I'm like, they're not any smarter than me. You know?
Right.
Like, it was like, before I saw that, it was kind of like these unicorn guys were like a different class.
Sure.
And then I saw that happen.
Totally. I get that. Yeah. I get that mentality for sure. I feel the same way a lot of the time. But like, but weren't you burnt out? Like, how did you manage that process of getting back on the horse?
Well, okay. So I was getting unburnt out watching what was happening with Jasper. Does that make sense? Like, I was quite burnt out when I set out to sell it. And then as I watched what happened with those guys, I was like, man, that looks fun.
Right. So you got a second wind.
Yeah, exactly. And I've done a pretty good job. I mean, I've done a pretty good job at maintaining that second wind up to this point.
If you had sold it at that point, what are the mistakes you think you would have made?
I would have bought way too much crypto. That would be
that's the main one.
Lows. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was so sold on the, as was the rest of the world, by the way. There were a lot of people sold on this. I was so into this thing and like the story of Bitcoin and the story of blockchain, and you know, I would have way over invested in that. I did anyway. It ended up being okay in the long run, but like I was way too exposed to that.
If you had your go again, would you have bought the crypto?
No.
You don't think it was worth it?
I would have done it in a very different way. So like, if I had to do it again, I would have never, I say I would never, but I'm still doing some impulsive things that are not like that impulsive. I'm just trying to like figure out ways to not do it. But like, the real problem with that was like, it was like a very high concentration of crypto versus my other liquid assets. So it was like kind of like got me to like this 2/3 crypto position. The beautiful thing was they called the capital over 2.5 years. So the first 2 capital calls were horrible prices. The next 3 were at like bargain base. It was amazing. So I think the fund even now is like flat, which is like incredible that like all of that could have happened. And then I did, to give myself some credit here, after I had, in addition to putting money in that fund, I had bought and held Bitcoin and Ethereum for like 2 years after the election, and my wife had some too. She's like, why don't we just sell all that and pay our house mortgage off? And literally like, it was like the genius trade of the century. Like somehow having bought it all then, like we ended up making money on that part of the crypto, then liquidating it at the absolute top, paying debt off. And then I still have this fund which got hammered, but like I don't really mind. It's not like I think crypto's a doomed asset class. I just think like post that election, everybody was like $1 million Bitcoin. And like that is exactly when it just goes through this round of like levered, unwind, like whatever. So yeah, I would have not done the concentration thing. I would have just bought Bitcoin and Ethereum rather than a fund, because like I think you're just paying unnecessary fees and but the nice thing about that fund was like I wouldn't have had the discipline to buy it over that time. Like I was so into it and I had so much FOMO that I would buy all right then. And I'll tell you what the worst case scenario would have been. The worst case scenario would have been I actually sold my company. I was so bulled up on crypto that I would have put way too much into it. And then I would have been so humiliated on the immediate decline of this, whatever I put in it to whatever it became, that just like I would have sold it for my wife's sake, to like, and then it would have rallied and I would have been totally humiliated. All things considered, it wasn't all that bad. It just put 2023, it made 2023 for me a lot tighter than it needed to be. And it was all my doing. Because like, in addition to that, I ran my business in a way where I thought it was a unicorn and I was wrong. So I was like kind of reinvesting everything. And now I'm back to this bootstrapped cash flow mentality. But like that plus that other stuff, just like put it in like The
mortgage thing I'm really interested in, right? Because I own a house and we've got a mortgage on it and my wife wants to aggressively pay it off. I am more of the mind that like, hey, we should be putting this in the markets, let it do its thing. We're young enough that this is going to kind of be worth it in the long term. Talk to me about that trade-off and how you see that as like a man that's spent more time thinking about the markets than I have.
Yeah, so I think that there is absolutely no question that one of the best financial trades that you can do is taking the money from a low coupon mortgage and putting it in SPY and never ever trading it and just letting it rise. Inflation, compounding earnings from corporations back into it, the self-selecting nature of the index, those 3 things combined, there doesn't even really have to be growth to make that a home run trade.
Right. So then why ever pay off a house? Yeah.
So like I'm an entrepreneur and I view my businesses as still quite risky. They're still very early stage, So there's just some sleep at night thing about knowing that I have no personal debt. And like my variable expenses are incredibly high, but they're variable for a reason. Like I can get my wife to stop spending $5,000 a month on clothes or whatever it is, right? We can not pay a nanny $100,000 to like help us with our 2 kids, right? Like all of this stuff is very optional. So yeah, it is an irrational financial decision, in my opinion, that is purely to make me feel better emotionally.
A common sentiment we've heard from all the interviews we've done is that anxiety, that emotional side of things, money doesn't change it. And even though his business is doing far better now, he's still feeling it.
Something is very weird about the trajectory of these things. Like, I'm really anxious about this tariff situation and like the pipeline in the CCOM business. And then I just feel like we need to change the product a lot in the B2B product to get it growing to much bigger than it is. And like, it feels just as bad in this position that I'm in right now as it did when we were at like 3 million ARR and I was dealing with the same thing.
Right.
You know, it's just the weirdest human. It's like, if you would have told me then that I would be on this podcast saying the numbers that I'm saying right now,
and saying you feel
my
anxious,
emotional state would be identical, I would say, you're crazy. Check me in, right? Like,
dude, I can so relate. Like, I can so relate.
And by the way, I felt the same way about like when it's like I felt better about like the overall anxiety of my days from when I left finance to when our business actually turned a profit and it wasn't even turning a profit, is when I saw it, when I could extrapolate that it would actually be sustainable and it was like growing. Like until that moment, it's like, it's almost like it doesn't matter how much money you have. If you're like burning your nut, it feels horrible. And I think that's the same way with companies. It's like, once it like gets to the size that it wants to be and it's like on the up again and things are like stable and it all makes sense, it doesn't matter. I just don't think it matters the amount that you're making. It's just the fact that it's like, not it's like the e-com space. It's like a lot of business selling e-com are shrinking right now. The e-coms themselves are shrinking right now. It's like, that's just it's a position of anxiety, regardless of where you're coming from, right? Like,
right. So, by the way, I remember when I was 27, I read The 4 Hour Work Week, and I was like, and I went through the dreamlining exercise, and it was so naive. But I remember sitting there and writing down all these things. Because like a lot of what you've said it like aligns with what I was thinking. I just want like freedom of time and choice, and I want, whatever, all this kind of stuff. I remember writing it down. I was like, oh man, when I'm making £4,000 a month, like I could never need more money than that. Like that would be incredible. If I've got 4,000 a month going into my bank account, like that is as good as it gets. And it's amazing how that line moves and that story changes. And and you breeze past way past it, and you're absolutely just as anxious. I'm interested. So the company's doing 25 million. It's profiting $1 million a month. What are you personally taking home at this point in time?
So I would have answered this question differently a week and a half ago.
Okay.
There's this horrible law in the US that President Trump put in during his first term called Section 174.
Okay.
And what it is you are forced to amortize your engineer and product people's salaries if they're US over 5 years, if they're foreign over 15 years. My whole team's in Canada. So now I'm paying these people all of their salaries, yet I have to recognize the expenses over 15 years. What is the net effect of that? The net effect of that is
way more profit.
My taxable income in the IRS's perception is 35% higher than my cash income. We switched accounting firms and they were super conservative on this, much more conservative than they were last year. I did not realize the magnitude of this problem for me. So I'm still trying to sort it out. Let's just say, my effective tax rate is like 60% as a Texas resident.
Sweet.
Right? Yeah, totally. So like, if I think I got paid like, I don't know, $4 million of cash last year, which I thought would have been a 40% tax rate being a Texas citizen, but it was actually a 60% tax rate as a Texas citizen.
That is utterly bonkers.
It was I had one of the worst weeks that I've had in a long time last week because it's the strangest feeling in the world. Just, okay, my fault, right? Like I kind of got excited about paying my mortgages off. I like didn't budget enough for this, but like to see money you have earned there and then just have it disappear. It's like I go to this website, I send it to the IRS and it's just gone. right? Like I thought that last Wednesday I was going to be able to put $500,000 into the market to save. Not only was I not able to do that, I had to pay 500 additional that I had not accounted for.
Neat.
Right? So yeah, I'm trying to figure that out. I think there's something there's a plan to mitigate some of it. But like, we're an LLC, so it's like the worst for an LLC owner because it's hitting you at your highest marginal tax rate.
Right.
If you're a C Corp, then it only gets taxed at the 21% and it doesn't flow out to you and get double taxed because it's not cash. So like we need to switch to a C Corp. There's other things we can do like that to like mitigate a little bit, but like, can you imagine the surprise?
No, I can't.
Literally in a day, like I was like, I felt like I had been so responsible with our financial planning. I'm like literally like already told my RIA that I'm going to send this dough over. And I was like, I called him, I'm like, dude, like not only am I not sending you this, like I'm having to pay another $500,000 that I was not aware of. So anyway, that's adding to my anxiety in the last few weeks.
Quick pause here because there's a great solution for you to avoid problems like this with your business in the first place. Yes, this is a very smooth transition to a plug for the company that makes this podcast possible, the thing for you to get all of this value from, and that is called Hampton. I'm a member, and it helps me with my business all the time, including making very costly mistakes. But as you can tell by my accent, I'm not American. And all of my tax obligations and all that sort of stuff are actually based in UK law. And the cool thing about Hampton is it isn't just one big community, though it is also that. It's also made up of lots of micro core groups based on your business size, your location, and a bunch of other factors. And even cooler is that because of that, you get to have real life face-to-face meetups. That means in person, looking at people in the eyeballs, not just through Zoom screens, physical human beings. It's great. So if you're a founder doing at least 3 million in ARR, check out joinhampton.com. When you join, you'll get endless personal value, but you also guarantee that this podcast keeps existing. So go on, please go and check it out. Joinhampton.com. Okay, back to Adam. What's your monthly spend like these days?
This is also a very hard one, and I tried to look and triangulate it. So we have had an ongoing construction project at our house, kind of like since we moved in 5 years ago, getting it to the point where it's where we needed to be for 2 kids. We're only having 2 kids. It's now there. The last thing is happening right now. I actually put a pool in 5 years ago that I had to replace now because I got this container pool that was supposed to be cheaper and better, and it was during COVID and there was a backlog. It was not cheaper. It, rusted through, and like I literally had to just start over and like spend even more to like have them remove it and replace it. That's happening now. And my wife and I have started like traveling more, but like I think it's like $750 a year, right? So what is that? 60 months, 65? Like but keep in mind I pay my mortgages off. So, we got nannies and preschool and, she likes wellness and clothes and, we got a boat that we split with somebody that's $20,000 a year. And
what do you like to spend on? What's your kind of thing?
Like my thing is like, like we went on a really nice ski trip this year to Aspen and like really awesome. Just stayed at the nicest place. And it was just, if you were to do it inexpensively, it was like 10 times more than the inexpensive way. But like, it was an incredible experience. And like, we spent 5 winters in Aspen. We got a ton of friends there. Like, that was such a good use of money, in my opinion.
Yeah, awesome.
And my wife thought so too.
Yeah, right.
I also love having a boat 10 minutes away from my house to wake surf. I'm not using it a lot anymore because I have a 2.5-year-old and a 6-month-old, and they literally sort of like a startup consumes dollars. Like they just consume every second of time that is available from you.
Correct.
Yeah. So, that'll be like, maybe I'll use it. But like before I had them and I was working less even, I was on the boat like 4 times a week. So it was like the greatest investment my dollar cost average of that thing was in a really good spot. Now, not so much because we use it, 10 times a year, but it's still amazing to have. So those are my 2 splurge things.
What do you think is your biggest takeaway from this whole experience?
I mean, look, man, I'm still struggling with it, but I just want to like stick to, I really want Sam has these ChatGPT coaches. I want to like make a ChatGPT financial advisor, not even a financial advisor, just like a spending advisor for me and my wife. That like before the credit card is activated, you have to like run it through this ChatGPT and like see if it like, is actually aligned with what we have said we wanted,
Uh-huh.
you know? Because like, I'll give you another example. It's like of something that happens. So, or happened, not happens. This didn't happen to us. This was us doing this, right? So like things were feeling really good in the third and fourth quarter last year and the first quarter this year, really until like a week and a half ago when I figured out this tax thing.
Sure.
You know, I banged out both my mortgages. Like, it seems like I'm going to, you know, make this amount of money that I like didn't even think was my thing, like 5 million. I don't even know. 6 million, who knows? So I was like, Helen, we'd been talking about getting a second car because we got 2 kids now. We have a second car, but it's like a little convertible vintage Mercedes that I got my wife for her wedding that you can't put a kid in.
Got it.
So she's like, what do we need to go 2 places? So it's like, okay, let me just like bank this $5 million this year or whatever it is, right? Then wait till the end of the year and then order any car you want, right? And then like literally in February, she's like, well, you need to take Charlie to this and I need to this. Should we just do this now? And it's like feeling so good that I'm like, you know what? Yeah, order the one you want. It's not going to get here for 6 months. And like, it's kind of splitting the difference. Like, we're not really being not principled about it. And then this thing happens and I'm like, we got to walk. I'm sorry. We just have to walk on this $5,000 down payment we made. Like, this was an unbelievable swing in perceived situation, right? That happened like a week ago.
Yep.
And like, it sucks and everything, but I'm like, you know what? Like, the spirit of that was, let's save a lot of money and reward ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And like, in a goal set in January for December. And like somehow 1 month later, you know, like we had like deviated from that core principle. So, you know, that's the kind of stuff that she and I struggle with.
So where is it sounds like there's still a part of you that's that kind of like impulsive trader from Wall Street back in your 20s.
Very much.
And then there's also that's kind of fighting day to day with this like wise man in the woods that kind of like you figured everything out. Like how do these things meet each other day to day? Like where are you at with it? Like
so the method that we've tried to put in place is my wife and I every month send our transactions to an accountant and we actually have him make us a P&L and we go through it.
Cool.
And like that's added accountability, but like sometimes we miss a month because like March, like I was gone almost the whole month and she was gone for half of it with me or whatever. So like we miss it. And then like, you know, it's like I feel like when we're looking at that every few weeks, it kind of reminds you of this kind of stuff. But still you know, I don't know. I'm just trying to improve my habits even more. You know what I mean?
So like you said when you thought you were going to sell the company, but it didn't happen, you're glad that it didn't because you weren't mature enough for that money yet. Do you think you're mature enough now?
I don't know. I can't honestly say yes because I just told you about something that literally happened 2 months ago, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, look, I don't think I'm doing things that will bankrupt us, but like, I think that with very, you know, with not that much different of an emotional experience, like I could have like saved more. You know what I mean? Like
totally.
I could have been, but maybe that's just me. You know,
I think we all could. I don't know. Like we've had folks on here that are like hardcore fire people who are just incredibly good at saving money.
Yeah, that's not me.
That is not me either, right?
I'm not interested in that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to live that way. Like, by the way, another thing that I love to do is I'll never let somebody contribute for gas on the boat. Like, I like, you know, picking up dinner tabs if like my wife's friend who's an artist is with us. Like, I like having 10 people over and cooking filet mignon. You know what I mean? Like, I just like entertaining.
Yep.
And like, it doesn't feel lavish to me, but like when you break down the frequency and like, you know, kind of what it is, it's like, yeah, we're spending like a couple $1,000s more a month on food than like someone who doesn't do that, you know?
Sure. Yep.
So a fire person would never do that.
Right.
That's what sort of put it, like never, it wouldn't even be a possibility.
The Aspen holiday is not a thing for a fire guy.
Yeah. But like even having 10 people over for maybe Mr. Money Mustache because he's like so rich, but like having 10 people over and cooking a very, very nice meal that costs like $400, like that probably wouldn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I don't know. But like, I really love that community and I like doing the nice things for them and like whatever.
Yeah, totally. Do you kind of prefer the way that you're building your wealth now in this sort of like step by step, you're kind of earning each month, you've got this bootstrap business, you're able to cash flow it and kind of bring money out personally, and you're able to drip that into your net worth versus like a big windfall in the form of a single sale event? Like, what do you think's better?
Honestly, I can't believe I'm saying this, but it's kind of like the trading job.
Right.
When you're winning, this is the best way.
Sure. Yeah.
When you're losing, it's almost like you'd rather be funded by a VC guy because then you just like walk.
As he admits, Adam is great at making money, but the rest of it, well, it doesn't come so naturally to him. But his spending is nothing compared to Don Berger. He is hurtling himself towards zero, and the craziest part is that that's the plan. You can click here to get that story.